Hey, what's up? It's Brian here, and in this video I'm going to analyze racism towards one's own race and the development of self-hatred. So I'm going to go pretty deep in this video. I mean, some topics I don't really see people talk about much, and towards the end of the video I'm going to talk about if who you're attracted to plays into self-hatred at all, and what a race sellout is, in my opinion, also. And like I say in all my videos, if you appreciate the messages, like the video, comment, share. That's always appreciated from the bottom of my heart, truly. And you may be thinking, Brian, this is a little bit of a different topic, right? There's so much focus right now on racism towards other people, but I'm noticing underlying craziness going on, specifically in regards to self-hatred. So I want to address that in this video. And self-hatred, in my opinion, could come in varied forms, but it's primarily two sides of the same coin from what I've seen. So it's either group guilt or group victim complex. So this is like from people of your race in the past or ancestors either doing something bad or experiencing something bad. And if you internalize either of those, that's an unproductive thing, in my opinion. And no, I'm going to use white people and black people primarily in this video as examples to illustrate my points, but all races can be on either side of this coin at different points in time, or just depending on who you're talking to also. And it's like, to very quickly go into, it's like if your ancestors were racist or murderers or did something bad, sometimes you feel shame from that. You look down on people in your race or maybe yourself from that. Or the other side, if your ancestors experienced a lot of trauma or maybe were victims from the past, you may view yourself in a traumatic way or victimize yourself before you're actually a victim of anything. You might look at yourself as inferior, right? So you really have to fight this by recognizing that you are an individual. You are not what your ancestors did or experienced, especially the negative part of that, right? Like in some ways you can kind of be like, okay, I'm proud of this positive history. That's one thing, but never look down on yourself from negative history. Never do that. And this might seem obvious, but to be really transparent right now, I've never had self-hatred, but I did for a couple years. I would say prejudge older white people by assuming they were closed-minded, based off maybe racist from the past or that sort of thing. But I quickly realized this is absolutely no different from a psychology perspective from prejudging, say, young black males, right? It's stereotyping, it's prejudging, it's assuming, and it's all negative. And there's a small sector of society that goes even further into this, that magnify what I just talked about. So even a previous coworker that I had, she even said that white people just have to give all their stuff to black people. And just from some of her comments, you can tell there was a lot of shame there. There was a lot of self-hatred there. And look, I understand trying to empower people who are maybe going through challenges, but you don't have to disempower your race in the process for that. That's really unproductive, and it's condescending also. It's almost treating the other group as children, and in the way that my coworker was talking about it in that post. So, and then the opposite side of that, sometimes like parents, if they experience adversity or maybe they were victims, they put that experience, that traumatic experience, onto their children. They victimize their children before they're a victim of anything. And this is really disempowering, because if you try to cap your child's success and you tell them this other race has privilege over you, you can't do stuff like this other race, you have to work 10 times harder than this other race, that's all disempowering talk. And a lot of children, I've noticed, black children specifically, they develop an inferiority complex from this. They have fear from this. Right, so they're told all day this other race, maybe white people, have privilege over them. Maybe they see the crime in their city. Like, maybe no one cares about us because we're inferior. Right, so that's a really negative thing. It's disempowering. You have to understand that you are not what happened in the past. Like, you can kind of look at that from a resilience perspective, which is empowering. You really have to do that. And the media, a lot of the times, like I said in my Stop Trying to Hold Black People Down video, they play off this. They play off both sides. So they want white people in general to feel bad about being white and black people to feel like a victim solely for their black skin. And it's disempowering to both sides. It develops self-hatred. And self-hatred in anybody is not productive or positive at all. And really, you have to translate this idea, this group guilt and group victim complex thing, maybe from the past, into other areas of life, and you'll see how ridiculous it truly is. So in terms of America's past history of racism and slavery, it seems like logic just goes out the window in regards to this, in regards to like shame and self-hatred in the present day. So for example, like if your mother or father was a mean-spirited person, like that is not your fault. Like that is their fault. That is their character. That is not your character. right? Another example, if your mom was emotionally abusive to, say, everyone that she meets, you do not have to apologize for that. That is your mom's responsibility to apologize for that. If your mom or dad was in a money scheme and stole money from their friends, you do not have to give up money because of that, right? If your dad was a rapist and raped your mom and that created you, right? The most extreme example, you do not have to live with that. He does. You are still valuable, right? Or if your mom or dad was a victim of something and they were raped, you do not have to live with that. That is their experience. And they have to overcome that to live a positive life. Don't internalize that yourself and feel bad about it. That's not on you, right? So like that, those extreme examples is really empowering, I think, because you are not what the past people in your family have done or experienced, right? And that's empowering because that gets rid of negative chains. That gets rid of negative behaviors and negative mindsets across generations. And I'm not seeing that conversation right now. I'm seeing people be encouraged to live in the past of what their ancestors either did or experienced in a negative way. And that's so disempowering, and I'm tired of that. I'm tired of that. And another point is that people can sometimes be encouraged to only worship, say, victims in your race, or only emphasize the bad people of your race. So it's like, whether it's the criminal or the victim, the killer or the killed, that's still negative. Right? Don't highlight the negative people in your race unless it's a let's be better sort of way or let's overcome this sort of way. Right? So you really have to articulate things very clearly around this, especially when you're talking in front of children or you're talking on TV. Because kids a lot of the times, they need to learn resilience. They need to learn resilience. They need to learn overcoming. They need to learn what healthy positivity is. And a lot of the disempowering talk right now that I'm seeing, it's encouraging self-hatred or racism towards one's own race. So instead, I want people to highlight positive people in your race and every other race, right? Whether it's people who invented things or just did amazing things, right? Focus on Black excellence. Focus on white excellence, Asian excellence, Native American excellence, just human excellence. I really believe that we have to empower each other, and we can't do that through disempowering our own race. And that doesn't do anything productive. And I'm going to reference a quote that I mentioned in the Raising a Nation video on humility that I did, whereas you can have this mentality like, I'm excellent while still be humble. So here's a quote from that video. And I thought about this quote from the great Bill Russell, former basketball player, civil rights activist. He said one time that his mom told him, "You're not better than anyone else, and no one is better than you." So with that quote, you can't just internalize that first statement, but not the second, or vice versa. So you have to have a balance there, right? Empower yourself while not being full of yourself. Be humble, not having that self-shame and self-hatred. Because like your race has the capabilities of every other race out there, positive and negative. And I'm going to go a bit deeper right now with this. So I live in Philadelphia, so I'm familiar a bit with just like the United States. And there's some very sinister perspectives that I've noticed right now that you want to avoid if you don't want to have feelings of shame and self-hatred. So again, I'm going to use examples of white people and Black people here to illustrate my point. So in some circles, if you're a white person that strives for greatness, it's almost viewed as increasing the racial wealth gap. Or there's also some misguided perspectives out there of white supremacy, whereas white supremacy is just literally the number of white people in positions of power in XYZ organization. So you're literally told in some circles that if you succeed as a white person, you are contributing to oppression. Right? So that's such twisted logic and so disempowering. You have to avoid that as you're striving for your individual greatness in life, whatever race you are. Like you striving for your greatness is not diminishing anyone else's greatness. It's not. And if you're a Black person, sometimes if you go for it, I've noticed, you try to succeed, you make it out of poverty, get out of a negative environment. Sometimes people get upset at you. They want you to stay in your lane. Those races out there want you to feel inferior or disadvantaged. And this can come from all races. So sometimes white racists, as I said in my last video, they can have fake kindness when acting like they want to help you, say a Black person, but they really just feel superior. And they just want to give a little bit of privilege onto you out of sympathy. But deep down, they don't want you to get higher. They want you to stay down. So you want to notice that. And sometimes if Black people say try to succeed by striving higher or focusing on school or whatever, sometimes they're told they're acting white. So these are very serious psychological manipulations and tricks that you want to overcome. Because at the end of the day, be the best person you can possibly be. right? Prioritize yourself. Like I said in the love series I did, self-love is number one. You need to value yourself to be the best version of yourself. You have to act like your greatness matters and then get after it. And on that acting a color thing, you have to get that out of your vocabulary and encourage other people to do the same. Specifically on that acting white thing. I cannot stand that. If you hear someone say that to you, almost to shame you into striving higher if you're a non-white person, don't adopt the same mentality that that person has who said it to you. Because that person who said that to you, I'm talking to them in this video. Stop being racist towards your own race. Why the hell would you associate whiteness with something positive, such as striving higher or focusing in school, and perhaps insinuate blackness is something negative? That is mind-boggling backwards, and all the white racists and white supremacists are smiling ear to ear when someone says that. This is making people go backwards into thinking that white people are superior. The last thing we need as humanity is someone of a particular race being racist towards their own race and disempowering themselves. And also, there's a misguided notion out there of what self-hatred is in some circles. So some people think it's self-hatred if you're, say, only attracted to people of a particular race and it's not your own. So I wouldn't define this, even if it's physical or mental attraction, I wouldn't define this as hating your own race, because I think we just all have different tastes pretty much. And you might be thinking like, well, Brian, like, of course that's true. Like, that's obvious. Like, we all have different tastes. But there are people that actually think it's self-hatred if you don't just date your race. You know, Cardi B had an insult to Candace Owens from this. And it was just like hearing that. It's like, I've heard other people say that sort of thing. It was like, look, black women just gotta date black men, or they're racist towards their own race. Or white people, they just gotta stay in their lane, not go to the other race, or they hate their own race. Like, that is not self-hatred. Like, you can be attracted to whoever you want. So next, I'm going to talk about what a race sellout is, in my opinion. And sellout is used so illogically nowadays, and it's so disheartening, and it's extremely ironic, as I'm about to go into. So the people sometimes that call someone a sellout, maybe for having a different opinion than them, or maybe most people in the race, they're the one that is actually being a sellout. And I'm going to go into why right now. So it's like, if you say someone else is a sellout for having a different opinion, you're insinuating that your race is a monolith. You're insinuating that the hallmark of being your race is being closed-minded sheep and not thinking for yourself, which is an inferior characteristic. Thus, you are saying your race is inferior. You're being racist towards your own race. So that's so disempowering. And of course, this is 10 times worse if a statement such as that comes from someone outside of your race. You know, Joe Biden said if a black person doesn't vote for him, they're not black anymore. Almost like he owns their race. So that's a racist statement. I'm not calling Joe Biden racist, but that's a racist statement. So sellout nowadays is used so backwards, it's just ridiculous. I mean, sellout to me is defined as selling yourself out for something that's not authentic to you, or that's hurting people, maybe solely for money or fame. So in the context of being racist towards oneself, it's pretty much making money by hurting your own race. So this can come from pretty much embracing negative stereotypes of your race or promoting negative behaviors. And I'm going to be really real right now. Right now, I care more about the black community than the white community. And the reason why is because I'm seeing the black community, primarily children, really feel hurt, really feel disempowered, really have a lot of self-hatred that I'm not seeing in the white community. So with that in mind, I think constructive criticism is necessary, maybe to overcome some of the challenges that's going on. And I'm going to say a really bold statement right now that I don't think a lot of people recognize. So that's with that thing that I mentioned just in mind. A major underlooked form of racism is not advocating for solutions and improvements to issues that disproportionately affect one race for no reasons other than that you view that race as not worthy of the effort and care necessary to yield impactful and positive solutions. So that's what I'm seeing a lot right now. People not caring about the black community. They don't talk about the real issues because they just don't care. So with that in mind, I've noticed a lot of artists disproportionately and negatively affect black children, or stereotype black culture, or stereotype inner city culture, and it's just despicable. So the people I'm talking about, maybe artists, they might promote things such as gun violence, or not having a structured family, or chasing shallow things such as money, tying self-worth to sex, emphasizing entertainment, not education. I don't see these things, these promotions, really affecting the white community as much as the black community, and I'm sick of it. And these people, in my opinion, that promote these things through music and that sort of thing, they're consciously or unconsciously racist towards their own race. And I know that's a bold statement, but often they know the influence that they have with the music is not helping people whatsoever, but they don't care. They still are sellouts, and they choose the money and they want to live in the negative behaviors instead of promoting empowering messages. So like I said, I used black people as an example in this video. But it doesn't matter what race you are. You need to be conscious of the celebrities, of people maybe that have influence. Are they promoting negative behaviors and furthering negative stereotypes? Or are they working towards positive solutions and trying to flip negativity on its head and uplift people, right? And the message of this video is don't be one of those people, because that's being racist towards your own race and developing self-hatred. You really want to be conscious of that. Don't be a race sellout for money or power. And the reason why, like I said, because if you're blind to areas of improvement in any race, particularly your own, you're communicating to me that you don't care about your greatness, because the main hallmark of greatness is self-improvement. So you have to be aware of that, right? You stay closed-minded to improvement, and you're saying that your race doesn't matter to you. And to me, Black Lives Matter. And right now, honestly, to a lot of celebrities of all races, it doesn't. They might say it on the outside, it might come out of their mouth, but their actions speak differently. I'm seeing a lot of disempowerment going on, and I'm sick of it. I'm sick of all the racism towards black people right now in varied forms. So you really just have to stop the disempowerment and the self-hatred. Black lives matter, white lives matter, Asian lives matter, all lives matter. You have to empower yourself, whatever race you are. Right? You have to empower other people to think differently, to uplift one another, right? Seek improvement and be constructive with it, but never feel shame or inferiority because of your skin color. Period. You matter, obviously. Subscribe if you vibe.